on fire, and you will realize that the flames are burning, 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 burning higher, with lots and lots of different topics, thoughts of corruption that are now even coming out into the front. Wow, it's on social media, and a club has actually even said it. Well, before we go into this video, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and hit the bell button. It helps this channel to grow. And thank you again for everybody checking out this video. So the hell is going on? Well, let's talk about the first thing, that VAR is completely and utterly finished after this weekend. Now, in the game between Manchester United and Coventry City, yes, the FA Cup semi-final, Coventry City were denied a place in the final, which was deservedly theirs from VAR. VAR again ruined one of probably the biggest sports stories, not just football story, but one of the biggest sports stories that there probably will be this year. And it was ruined by some man sat in an office watching a TV screen, drawing lines across a pitch, and those lines didn't even seem to add up. The player was onside. In my honest opinion, the Coventry player was onside. But again, it doesn't suit the narrative. And I'm not saying that, because it's Manchester United. But what I am saying is that a actual place in the FA Cup final was denied to a championship club because of people in suits who do not care about this game that me and you love. That's why you're watching this show. You're not watching this show because you couldn't give a shit about football. You're watching this show because you actually love football. And VAR is actually finished. It's a complete and utter joke. Now, go into the championship and you'll see where Coventry City sit, and you'll see better decisions being made without the technology than what you see in the Premier League. And remember, Coventry City have been denied a place in the FA Cup final against Manchester City, in which they could have potentially got European football. I know it was a huge ask, but to be honest, let's go with it. Let's run with it. They could have got a place in the in a European competition for something that they don't even have in their own league, for something that they haven't played every single round of the FA Cup with. Coventry City have not had VAR in every single game they've had this season in the FA Cup. So how is it fair that they've been denied by it at the last minute, when it was pretty much the closest call you'll ever get, and in my honest opinion was onside? It was daylight robbery. And do you know why this decision was made? The linesman didn't flag, so he wasn't sure. He thought it was a goal. It was somebody in that office, because a Manchester derby will make a lot more money than a game between Manchester City and Coventry City would do. That is the be all and end all of it, really. The Manchester derby would make a lot more money for those people in the big suits who could not give two shits. Who, once they're gone, we'll all still be here. Honestly, it is absolutely finished. VAR needs to be abolished now if we cannot implement it like the Europeans have. The European leagues have got it spot on. The referee goes over to the side of the monitor, watches for 2 minutes, and then comes back and makes his call. Not gets told by some silly sod in the middle of, London that, oh yeah, I think, hang on, let's just draw a line here and draw a line here and draw a line here and draw a line up fucking there. It is literally the referee making that call. It should be timed. In our game against Burnley earlier on the season, yes, we did benefit from this, but I could not give two shits about that at this moment in time. It suits my point. What they did was they left it 7 whole minutes of loads of fans going, is it? Isn't it? Looking at the Burnley fans. Do you think it is? You think it is? We hope it's not, but that was happened for 7 whole minutes. If that decision had to be made within two, it might have been a different decision. But people can understand and appreciate when decisions are made that are wrong when there is no technology involved. Don't get me wrong, we've had Mark Housey on here, we've had Jeff Winter on here, and hopefully we'll have a lot more referees on here. Those referees, who, were so good back in their days, I'm not going to turn around and say they didn't make mistakes, because they did. And I'm sure Mark and Jeff will honestly say, yeah, probably made some mistakes, in our career, and probably could say, well, this was this one, this was this one. But they most of the time got it spot on. And the reason being is because they studied the game, they were masters at the game, and they made sure that they honed their skills. Nowadays, you've got referees stood there in the middle who is reliant on somebody. They could decide, well, I don't really need to be a professor or perfect at what I'm doing, because I know that guy up there will turn around and say, That's a penalty, that's not, that's a penalty, that's not, that's nope, that's not a goal." Or they're playing, and let's be honest, many people probably reason with this in the workplace, even where they are doing a good job. You know, say for example, Sam Allison was a fantastic referee when he recently refereed our game, doing a fantastic job, and then are overruled by somebody else, effectively micromanaged by somebody else. And then, of course, the performance and the quality of those referees go down. That is why, personally, from watching games in the Championship, I think the Championship referees are better than those in the Premier League. I'd like your opinions on that. Put it in the comments. Put it in the comments. But believe it or not, this weekend as well, somebody called it out. And that person that called it out was Nottingham Forest Football Club. So it wasn't a person at all. It was a football club. And this is what they said after their defeat against Everton, a 2-0 defeat. 3 extremely poor decisions, 3 penalties not given, which we simply cannot accept. We warned the PGMOL that the VAR is a Luton fan before the game, but they didn't change him. Our patience has been tested multiple times. Nottingham Forest Football Club will now consider its options. Now, there's been a bit of uproar about this, and to be honest, I made a joke as well that Win didn't include that, and we can't be held responsible here at the Cherries and all departments, or AFC Bournemouth can't be held responsible because nothing's fallen off our ground in this situation. But joking aside, I honestly think that Nottingham Forest have got a point there. In all honesty, the decisions that were made were poor. And I've got a lot of fans of Everton on here, and they might be going, "Oh, yeah," but at the same time, it's how I see it. It's not against Everton, and it's not against Forest. It's how I see it. Now, could it have been done in a better way? Yeah, it probably could have been, but then again, it's not having the effect that this has. Now, one thing that I know will be pissing the PGMOL off, and they like to be in charge. They like to have it be a dictatorship, effectively, and say, this is the way it is going. This is what we want. This is, nobody else is allowed an opinion. Football's all about opinions. Nottingham Forest are having theirs, and they should not be fined for this, in my honest opinion. Mark Clattenburg, of course, former referee, fantastic referee, refereed at the very highest level as well. And he, you know, is there and he's making decisions based on what he sees. He's not, you know, it, and I personally think, although it's not come out that this is Mark Clattenburg writing this, the PGMOL are not happy with Clattenburg being in that position because it kind of undermines them. But they need to be undermined because the refereeing decisions in this Premier League have been terrible. VAR has been terrible. Now, do I agree with Nottingham Forest that all three of those should be in penalties? I don't, but I'll tell you something, they should have had two of them. They should have had two of them. And let's be honest, even if they don't have three, two is too many. And I know a lot of people say, "Oh, Bournemouth fans don't like Nottingham Forest." You're probably no. At the end of the day, I'm saying this as I see it because I am a believer in the game being fair. Now let's talk about the VAR official, who was a Stuart Attwell, who again has not been particularly very good, and who I don't know if how many people know of this, was responsible for one of the most ridiculous goals in world football. Not just football in this country, although it happened in this country, world football. It's been played numerous times, and that was the ghost goal. So between Reading and Watford in 2008, Reading scored, but they didn't officially. What effectively happened was it hit the side netting. Now I've got, and everybody will know, a little bit of an affiliation with Reading. Again, that is irrelevant. That is irrelevant. What I'm saying was that was never a goal. And at least two of those for Nottingham Forest were penalties yesterday. But again, officials are ruining the game, ruining the sport. No, I don't believe in Nottingham Forest or Everton's points deductions. I don't believe in it. You can't have Manchester City looking forward to an FA Cup final, probably going to win the league, and Everton and Forest scrambling at the bottom for points because of points deductions. And this thing about Luton, in being a Luton fan, now, don't get me wrong, it's bringing the game into disrepute. It's talking about the integrity of the PGMOL, is talking about the integrity of the Premier League, and that is probably wrong. But at the same time, if somebody has got an affiliation with a football club, or there is a thought that they have an affiliation with a football club, should they be refereed in a game that includes that football club, or B, refereeing in a game that could directly affect that football club? This game directly affects Luton. It directly affects Burnley. So should a referee who has an affiliation with another football club, a football club who is in trouble, and is fighting for their lives, referee this game? No, not in a million years should they. Now, I'm not saying that is or isn't the case. Again, that is something that the PGMOL have to take seriously. They need to speak to Stuart Atwell and they need to establish where his alliances are. Because if his alliances are for Luton, personally, I think he should be kicked off because he should have turned around and said, "Look, guys, I'm not feeling comfortable refereeing this match because at the end of the day, I've got a strong feeling for Luton." Likewise, if they turned round and we were down there where Luton were, and they said, "Oh, Craig, you're going to go and referee or be the VAR for Nottingham Forest versus Everton." I personally would say no. At the end of the day, it's not fair. It's not fair. Somebody else needs to do that. Likewise, everybody knows, that of course I was born and bred in Reading. Would I expect to be stood there refereeing a Reading game? Of course I fucking wouldn't. Of course I wouldn't. Because it's wrong. And the PGMOL need to realise this. They need to realise that, Nottingham Forest should not be fined for this. The PGMOL should be investigating themselves because football is on fire in this country. And at the moment, unless we, the fans, and Nottingham Forest, for example, and clubs extinguish it, I should say, then it's going to keep on burning, 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 burning. And Pep Guardiola, I'll get on my soapbox about him as well, about all this FA Cup stuff. Him turning round and saying about, FA Cup replays and all that, it's a good thing. And what a biggest load of bollocks going. I'm sorry, I do not agree. Manchester City have been in one FA Cup replay in the last 10 years. This is the lifeblood for smaller teams. And there's somebody at the top of the game, a manager of a club. Well, rotate your fucking side then. You're Manchester City. You should be able to rotate your side. Erling Haaland doesn't need to play in every fucking game that you play in. Honestly, that is my opinion. Like I say, I've got on my soapbox. I'm proud to get on my soapbox every now and again. I want you to tell me if I'm right or wrong by getting on my soapbox. Do you believe VAR is finished? Should it be abolished? Personally, I do think so. Secondly, was Nottingham Forest right in what they said? Personally, I think they were. They had justification. Probably could have been done a little bit better, but would it have had the effect? Because at the end of the day, the Premier League, and most importantly, Richard Masters, is listening to absolutely nobody. And thirdly, you know, Everton fans, you'll all agree to this. Should Richard Masters be sacked? Well, you all know my opinion, and I think most of football, apart from those at the very top, are probably also slowly agreeing